welcome to Scrappin with Sheri. I am so glad that you're back with us, and I wanted to answer a couple of questions very quickly. One is, are you going to continue the sketch series? And yes, based on your comments, I think we'll continue it for right now. And another question that someone asked is, do I split up my collections to organize them in my sort and stash binder? I do not split those collections up initially. I keep them all together in project folders or power palette folders. I keep them all together to start with, but when I get down to a few pieces left of my collection, I break them apart into either themes like spring, summer, fall, winter, travel, or I break them apart into colors and put those in my sort and stash binder. So those are really good questions. You know, organization is something that you constantly have to work at, and you have to find a system that works well for you. And the sort and stash binder is just something that I found that works well for me and helps me use my stash more completely, I suppose. So we're going on with page 41 in our sketchbook. And this is a one-pager. I intend to make it a two-page just by mirroring it, basically. But there's not a lot on here except all this heavy border work at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to start with a couple of different pieces. I'm going to show you the papers I've pulled first. This is from the Secret Box Copper Canyon. It's a brown that's got some orangey rust color inside. The back side is this really hot blue with a lot of browns in it, but I'm just going to be using this brown side with the coppery accents on it. And that's going to be my background page, which is the bulk of my paper. Now there's a little border along the bottom, and my thought is that I would like to use some of this copper along the bottom. Now you see I've been playing because I was trying to figure out what I want to do with this page. And I'm still not sure. We'll kind of work on it as we go. But this little border along the bottom is 1 5/8. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my trimmer and cut 2 of those pieces at 1 5/8. Now, the 1 1/2 is 4/8, and then we're going 2 little ticks past that to get 1 5/8. And because I am going to make this a 2-page spread, I'm going to go ahead and cut both pieces as I go. I may not take the time to put them both together, but I'll show you the pictures in a minute to show you kind of where I'm headed on this as well. Now what they show is a border above, a border in the middle, and a border below. And then this color is going to be right along the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and tape these 2 down just to keep them from moving as I'm working on the other borders. Now remember, these are still pictures from my trip. And we are still in Canyonlands National Park. So my colors are a lot of this coppery rust color, the browns, just these earthy colors that you see out in the Midwest, out in Utah. Got to replace the tape runner. Remember, when you're replacing your tape runner refill, just to check right there for any gunk that's built up, because that can keep your tape from rolling correctly. And periodically, check this little piece right here. I have discovered that when that piece breaks, as it will over time, especially if you push really hard, you probably need to replace the whole tape runner housing. So check those 2 things when you're replacing your tape runner, just to make sure your tape runner cartridge housing is still in good shape. So the bottom piece is going to be ready. It's on here. It's done. And then we're going to build these other borders. Now, I really liked parts of what they built here. I love the way they had one scoop down below. I love the words in the middle. I love the borders above. That's just not what I had to work with. So let me show you a couple of things that I pulled that I really did like. Now, I pulled my cloud frame punch. And let me just tell you, I have seen some people who have commented that their cloud frame punch has broken, and they couldn't get another one from Creative Memories because they're sold out. Let me tell you, I came home from a trip recently, and my cloud frame punch was just popped open right here. So I took it apart, put some E6000 glue right along these edges, and we laid a really heavy piece of metal on top of it. Let it dry for 24 hours. Right now it's working again. So rather than get credit from Creative Memories because the punch broke, we just made it work. And, you know, I'll use it until it breaks again. But so far, so good. So I'm thinking I want to do something that mimics the look of my pictures. So you see the clouds here. Everywhere you see the clouds and sky. You see the mountains. You see the greenery. So that's kind of the look I'm going for in this layered border here. And for my clouds, I wanted to go with something in some blues. I went ahead and punched one of them. And this is a plaid that is from the Croptoberfest paper from 2023. I didn't mention, I don't think, but this copper is from the Secret Box. So I went ahead and punched one cloud. But I'm going to flip this over and punch another cloud to make this a 2-pager. Now remember, when you're punching this as a border, you want to line up on one of the black lines. It doesn't really matter which one, but I tend to line my paper up on the right side. Just line it up and punch, and then slide until you've covered the blue. So make sure that you cover that blue, or your repeating design is not going to repeat in the right spots, and you're going to get some weird kind of looks there. So I'm just lining that up, covering that blue. And now I've made my clouds for both pages at the same time, and I can pull out my 12-inch trimmer again and just cut those off together. And because I'm going to be building things on top of this border, I'm going to make this about a 1 3/4. I'm going to go to this last line on here and make that about 1 3/4. And I am going to be doing a good bit of layering, so I feel like I'm going to cover up that excess anyway. And this one I'm not going to stick down just yet because we're going to layer some other pieces with it. Now, I've got the clouds, but I wanted to add some mountains in there. These are not going up there. I'm just laying them out there so I can see what I've got to work with. And I wanted to pull another border punch. This is the Alpine Mountain. Now, the mountains in my pictures are a little more flat than these, but I think this is going to work. And this I'm going to be punching out of some hot fudge. Now, you can see if I were to lay the hot fudge straight down on this background, it doesn't show up nearly as well as if I lay it on the clouds. So I punched one. I'm going to go ahead and punch one more of those for this double spread. And again, I'm just flipping it on the alternate side to do that. And then I'll cut it off all at one time. And I know you're probably thinking, I don't know what she's doing. That's okay. I don't really know what I'm doing either. You can tell I didn't get that one lined up really good on that black line, but we just chop that off and it's good to go. Now I'm going to empty this garbage. We need to cut this one in half. And I can do that by kind of lining it up with my 0 center. If I make the tips of these clouds just a little past the 1.5 inch on this side and just a touch past the 1.5 on that side, the tips of these mountains are helping me to line this up. It doesn't have to be exact because here again, I'm going to layer those borders. So I've got these. And when I looked at that, I discovered to me that there's one thing I don't really like about that. I don't like the blue plaid showing through here. So I'm going to go back and pick up some of this copper. Use this mountain punch again. And I'll still line it up correctly. But as I punch, I'm not really looking for the outside part of the mountain this time. I'm going to be using those inner pieces to fill in this mountain over here. So I'm going to need a couple of those. I don't need these top pieces, but I am going to need all these smaller scrappy pieces. So those are staying there. I'm going to cut this mountain off and go again. I originally thought that I might use this color mountain against that, That's why I had punched one to look at it against the blue, but I didn't feel like there was quite enough contrast for me. I liked the brown mountain better. And I'm going to save these little mountains I've punched because who knows when I might need some more of these orangey colored mountains. Right now, remember, we're going for the insides of that, just to make sure that we can fill in all of our little mountains with some of this coppery look. Now, if you're looking at the sketch, you'll notice that the border is going to take the bulk of the time on this particular sketch. It's not a hard sketch by any means. It's just getting all these border pieces right that's going to take a few minutes. So, where we are right now is we've got a cloud, we've got a mountain, and I want my mountains to kind of fit into the clouds just a little bit, but then we're going to go back and add these pieces in. And then I've got one more thing that I wanted to add, and these are words out of the Wanderlust paper pack. It's got some pretty stripe on the back, but I'm using these words because it says things like Wanderlust, a wish to travel far and wide, to let the world be your guide. I like the words on that, and I feel like there'll be a nice tie-in down here at the bottom. So let me cut those, and then we'll line this up and get this put together. I'm going to do this at about 1 inch. Here again, I don't think that's a magical number. It's just, it feels right to me right now. Who knows? I don't want tons of the copper showing at the bottom, but I do want there to be enough that you can read the words. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this one. We'll see how it looks and make sure we like it before we get them both taped down. I'm not going to leave a ton of that copper. It's probably maybe a 1/2 inch showing at the bottom, something like that. I'm going to layer the mountains and the clouds. And the clouds I'm just going to put right on top of that border I cut along the bottom. That was my 1 5/8 initially. And then these mountains, we're going to sit right on top of the words, right into the clouds. And then we'll fill those in and see how we like that look. I sure hope we like it after we've cut all these borders. That would be a shame, wouldn't it? All right. Now let's go back and use our repositionable tape. And I'm going to use that on my blue mat here to add in all these little pieces. Now, probably one of the hardest things is figuring out which direction all these little pieces go so you don't put the repositionable tape on the wrong side. Oh, look, I already like the look of that. I'll do the big pieces first because I think they'll be the easiest. And the great thing is they just fill right back in that hole. All right, so let's do those smaller pieces. This might be a good time if you have a lifter stick to use it. I tend to just use my fingernails a whole lot. But if you don't have fingernails, you may need your lifter stick to get all these little bitty pieces popped in the right spot. You know, sometimes a page takes me a really long time, and I wonder if it's worth it. But I have the feeling the effect on this one is going to be worth it. If you're a major progress person and you want to see lots of things done quickly, you could use pre-made borders for this. You could use sticker borders. You could use a lot of different things. You could just use different colors of paper just to make pretty lines on there. You don't have to do all this punching. But, you know, I have a whole wall of punches. I figure I better be using them occasionally. Just a couple more and we'll have the hardest part of this finished, and we can just add our pictures and we'll be done. Okay, I love that look. I think that's really pretty. So let me go back to my sketch. I'm going to lay this page aside for a minute and just finish the one I'm working on, and then I'll put this one together really quickly. So if I go back to my sketch, the only other big thing is there's a photo mat here that's kind of offset, and then some little tags out to the side. So I am going to go ahead and cut this photo mat, and I think I'm going to do that in the copper color. This is what I had cut those mountains out of to try. And I'm not sure that I have, well, we'll just see. We'll see how wide it is. The mat calls for a 4.5 by 6.5. Well, obviously, I don't have that much left. So when I cut these mountains off, I am left with an almost 4.5 that I'm going to go with. And I'm just going to cut it in half to make it 6. I'm not going to cut a whole nother sheet of paper just for another 1/2 inch here. And the reason I want 2 of these is because this will be a double spread. And I just want to have that mat to play with, even if I don't use it exactly the way that they did. So let me pull my pictures out that are going on the left-hand side of the page, and we'll get it completed. Now, this was a hike we took to this grand view point, and I thought that was just beautiful. But then after that, we went on to finish our hike at a place called Mesa Arch. Now, I took a picture of this because I needed to remember that this was Mesa Arch, but I've got pictures that show all of this. The wording on here is very small to read, so I'm not necessarily going to worry a lot about having this photo on a page. And I could just stick both pieces of Grandview Point right there. Slide Mesa Arch over this way. You know, I like my pictures to overlap. And it kind of bothers me that this is Grandview Point, but this is Mesa Arch. So I think what I'm going to do is go that direction. So then both pictures of Grandview Point are touching one another. And this picture, as we approach Mesa Arch, is going to go over to the side a little bit. This one I'm going to discard. And the reason I'm going to do that is because in the package that I bought, I have this label that says Mesa Arch that I can put on the very next page. So that picture is gone. Now, remember, I had these pictures pre-matted at Shutterfly when I had them developed. I've got the pictures from my other page here. But because there's not a ton on here, except I want to see the elevation and the title of it, the name of it, I'm going to cut that down and just make it a little bit smaller. Just going to make that just a little smaller. And then both of those pictures will fit a little more easily on this page. And I think I'm going to overlap that. So I've gotten my 3 pictures on here. Now, I like the clouds along the bottom. I like the mountains that we filled in. I like the wording here. And we've got this mat that was seen as an offset mat here. And I think I may just kind of throw it on up here. It just picks up a little bit of color. Brings a little more of that orangey color to the top. And I do like that. Now let me see what else I had when I was pulling out some things. Oh, I found this sticker in the things I bought from Canyonland, so I could put the Grandview Point up there. I also had these little trees that I thought were pretty cute, and I could add them right along the bottom. You still see a little of the words, but that brings in my greenery too, so I think I'm going to add those trees. Yeah, this layered border is just getting bigger by the minute, isn't it? So we're not leaving much copper showing. We're not leaving a ton of words showing. But we're bringing in all the elements of this picture, of these pictures on this page. Let's go ahead and adhere these. Again, I'm going to do that just a little wonky. Again, not normally a technique I do much of. We'll add this picture. I think I'm going to trim off just a touch of that at the top, and maybe this one too, just to even those up just a little bit on that white matting. And you'll see how this white matting and these white words along the bottom just kind of pull everything together. Then my colors in my border below are tying all the colors together. I'm going to add that straight up there. This one's going to overlap just a touch. You know what? I feel like that one's too far over, so I'm going to slide it back over just a little more. Kind of even up my spacing here some. And you do have to be careful on some of these darker papers. That tape runner will kind of pull off the finish of the paper. So, if you're not sure you're sticking it in the right place, be careful about sticking it down too hard because you will pull off some of the dye of the paper. And then I still need to get this one in. All right. So this shows us the Mesa Arch on approach, but then the next page facing this will be all of the pictures that we took at the Mesa Arch. So because we know that this is Grandview Point, I can go ahead and add that here. And it's a sticker, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and stick it down. It kind of fades a little bit, but I don't really want it closer. I don't want it down here. Maybe we should mat that with just a little bit more of that copper. And as soon as I say that, I don't have a scrap of copper. So we're going to go with it. So that shows that this is indeed Grandview Point. And we've got this side of the page finished. Now, I don't really need tags hanging out here, but I thought some tags right here might be good. And here again, I have ended up with these things from the Canyonlands National Park store. So I'm going to put a couple of these right in here, I think. And maybe not even a couple. Maybe since I've got Grandview Point up there, I'll just go ahead and put one here. And maybe one more. So instead of cutting little pieces of paper, I'm just putting these little sticker tags there. And I kind of like that. That pulls a lot of my colors. All right, so we've got the one page finished. That is page 41. But I'm going to work real quickly and let you see the other page with that, so you'll see what they look like together. Work done. Filling in those little mountains takes a minute. And remember, we decided to go back and add the trees along the bottom. This was a pre-made layered border. It was in a package that Creative Memories offered at some point in time. It was in my Sort and Stash binder and my greens. So when I was looking for a little green to add to this page to pick up the color in the pictures, it was easy to find that. And let's pull out our pictures for this side of the page. Remember, I've got this little title sticker. So we had cut this mat to kind of mimic that mat. And on the sketch, it showed a mat this direction with a picture kind of up and down on it. Now, their mat was a little bit bigger than mine. Remember, I didn't want to use up another sheet of paper just to cut a mat. And they've got two smaller photos here, but I'm going with my two largers. And I think that's where I'm going. Now, a lot of people would not put both of these pictures in here because they are so similar. But I liked that you see a little more in the background here. I just like the look of it. I like the dimension. So I am including both of those. So let me go ahead and stick these pictures down. Let me show you something else that I had pulled out that I thought I might use on this page. And we'll see if we can use it. And go ahead and stick this down, and then I'll show you something else I had in mind. Love this coppery look up here. But I also had this frame from that secret box that pulls out that coppery look too. And you know, there's a part of me that loves it, but I don't love this teal color here, especially when I've got the blues and greens here. So we'll save that for another page. I'm sure there will come a time when we can use it. And I'm going to put this picture kind of straight up and down. Now, we had the Mesa Arch title. And I think I'm going to add that right up here. Actually, I think I'm going that way with it. And because of the fact that it's kind of sinking in, yeah, I think I'm okay. I was going to say we might add a foam square to it, but I think it's okay. And I've got some borders, layered borders down there at the bottom that are already going to make this page a little fat. So I don't think I'm going to add anything else to the top. Now here again, I did like some of these little tag things. Hiking, peaceful. I think I'm going to add a couple of those down here. The colors are not exact with what I have going on, but I think they're all very complementary, so I like that. And I think I got that one crooked. Now again, these stickers were from a package that I bought at the National Park. Not something I use a ton of, but these worked for these particular layouts. So we have taken page 41 in the sketchbook. We've made it into a 2-page spread. I mean, pretty easily, even though it was a little time consuming. Here again, this is one of those pages where I've got plenty of journaling on other pages, so I'm not ready to add any more journaling yet, and the pictures sort of speak for themselves. So, page 41 is done. Somebody said the other day, on to page 41. Well, next time we're on to page 42, and we'll see what that brings us. But until then, happy scrapping.